Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder, and this week's episode is brought to you by Simple Wishes. Simple Wishes offers hands-free pumping and nursing bras featuring a patented dual-function nursing clasp. And today's episode is also brought to you by Zomi, breast pumps approved by lactation consultants and loved by moms. And we will hear more from our sponsors later, but you can find our sponsors and all of our sponsors at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. They make this podcast possible. So if you could head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and our sponsor page and see if you can give them any business, if you need anything. And while you're there, you can scroll down and enter your email address and you'll have episodes sent straight to your inbox every week. And Dianne has our review of the week.
And it comes from Dana Houston Jones. She sent, I hope she doesn't mind, I'm like totally calling her out by name here, but she sent us an email at badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And she said, "Hi, Dianne and Abby. I just had to reach out and express how grateful I am for finding your podcast. I'm a first-time mom of a 5-month-old boy, and I knew before long I was ever pregnant that breastfeeding relationship was something I very much wanted. It didn't take me long to discover how much conflicting information, judgment, and stigma there is in the United States when it comes to breastfeeding. Your podcast has been such a valuable resource to me in having confidence that my body is doing and providing exactly what it needs for my baby. Your words have made it so much easier. Your words have made so much of this easier for me too. If I were just using Facebook groups and shit advice from people around me as a resource, I'd be making things so much harder for no reason and doubting all my decisions along the way. You guys have also given me the confidence to start bed sharing with my little guy. And holy shit, I can't believe how much more sleep we are all getting. I'm only 5 months in. I initially set myself a goal of a year, but after finding your podcast, I intend to go as long as my son wants to and potentially tandem nurse down the road if we have another. As a social worker myself, you guys fire up my activist spirit to go out and play my part in normalizing this biologically normal and wonderful thing and counter misinformation when I can. You also give me more reasons to keep hating capitalism. Thank you. Thank you for fueling my newest passion and doing the work you do. I will always recommend this podcast to any of my nursing friends. I am also listening to Revolution Parenting, and I look forward to your voices in my ear as I am moving towards a world of gentle parenting." So Dana sounds a little bit like a badass, so go out there and get them.
I love how contagious empowerment is.
Oh, I know.
Like when people start to feel empowered and it kind of spreads to people around them and it really gets into people's skins and it spreads to every area of their life. Mm-hmm. And like, I love seeing that, like, people learn about, breastfeeding and start doing these things and they learn about something that feels good to them. And then all of their plans change and they just look at everything so completely differently. That's exactly what happened to me too. And it doesn't happen to everybody. Not everybody wants to nurse until their kids want to stop, and that's fine. But for many people, they change, their plans, they change everything.
So much change. Your ideas change so much after you have a baby. It really does. Like the more you learn and the more things you figure out, the more
it's a virus, like a good virus.
Yeah. It's good COVID. Yeah. No, so thank you so much for sending us in. I think that's awesome. And you can send us your reviews. You can put them on iTunes. You can send us an email. iTunes helps a lot. And either way, we get them.
Yes. And if you are going to leave a review, I have some pointers for you. First of all, make sure that it is regarding the podcast that you are listening to and that you have actually listened to that podcast. We have a review on our iTunes right now that says this person will never listen to us again because we had so-and-so on this podcast and so-and-so has never been on this podcast. Dianne and I were up last night Googling this person going, what the hell? I don't know who this person is. And so my suggestion is to make sure that the review is relevant. That's all we request.
Yeah, that's it.
But tell us how you feel. I don't care. Either way, we like your reviews. But when they don't apply, it's kind of like, okay. What? At least make it apply.
We were both like, did this really happen? Did we talk to this person?
I know. I'm researching my own podcast. Looking at all the people that we interviewed. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like this, I don't know who this person is. And somebody's confused.
Yeah. So just make it about
Just make it about this podcast. Like if you're going to leave a review, make it about this one, the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. Thanks.
Thank you. We're going to talk about some cool stuff today. So I know, like, originally, what did we put? Like, oh my God, my words are totally caught up in each other. So we're going to talk about like gut health and
baby poop. Yeah.
So I ended up getting caught up in this whole microbiome thing.
I know. I like how the research sometimes changes the way that we approach the topic.
Yes.
After we get into, and we have an idea, and then you start looking into the idea, and then you're like, oh, wait, maybe it should be about this. So I haven't done any research. You tell me what today's episode's about.
Well, and we can definitely, I'm sure we will talk about poop because
we have to talk about poop because I have things to say about poop, and everybody loves talking about baby poop. Like, what is the deal? Is it, poop is just this neutral thing in your life until you have a baby, and that is the center of your focus.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's too hard. It's too soft. It's the wrong color. Oh my God. I remember like poking my fingers into Jack's poop, trying to figure out if it was like too hard or too soft.
I never did that. I can say that up front right now. I don't think I ever poked my child's poop.
Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And I would keep a poop log on the wall.
Oh my gosh.
Of like how often he pooped and what the, hi. No, I'm not struggling with anxiety over here or anything at all.
I did keep a log for a little bit, and then I kind of got to the point where I was like, all right, I can't keep up with this. I have too much stuff going on. Yeah,
and it eventually goes away as they get a little bit older and the poop gets a little bit more. But even now with a 10 and a 7-year-old, and if they're like, I don't know, they're like, my poop was kind of like diarrhea. I'm like, what? Oh my God. And then I go in the toilet and look.
Oh my God. I do have a little funny story to say about this. So my kid, my twins are 19 now. Yeah. And a couple weeks ago, well, it was probably a month or two ago, my son was like, Mom, I think I need an appointment with my doctor. My twins are boy girls. So I think I need an appointment with my doctor. And I'm like, okay, well, you do have one coming up, but you want one before then? Like, is there something? And he goes, yeah, just a video is fine. And I go, is this something you don't want to talk to me about? Because he's kind of being a little sly, right? Yeah. And I'm like, is this something you don't want to talk to me about? And he goes, well, I can, but I don't really need to. I can talk to my doctor about it. And my daughter goes, is this that poop thing again? And he goes, yes, Jess, it's the poop thing again. Because he's got like the worst diet in the world. So like he always has these poop issues. But it is like you go from knowing exactly what's going on with their poop habits to having zero idea what's going on with them as they become older kids.
Yeah.
But I have had clients who keep track of their baby's poop for months and months and like journals. I mean, I remember going to somebody's house and she brought out this notebook and it had every single poop and pee this baby had done for 6 months.
Oh my God. And I'm sure there's an app for it. I'm sure there's 20 apps for it.
Absolutely. And then, people really just, well, they didn't poop today. Is that okay? What's going to happen? And people call the pediatric office all the time. Well, the baby didn't poop or the baby pooped, but it'll look like this. Is that normal? Is this okay? It's like, there's so much about it. And then you just don't expect it to look like it looks. You expect it to look like yours, I think. Like with your first baby, you're like, okay, this doesn't look right.
Here,
this
I just
weird.
did a poop search in the iTunes or what's that called? The App Store.
Oh, yeah.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something called Fart World. I don't know. Doesn't seem to apply, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just people are obsessed with poop. And then now people, of course, are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if we should talk about we could talk about poop for half an hour. But I did do some research on microbiome and I got freaking papers everywhere and research notes and all this stuff. You found. So somebody's going to hear about microbiome. I don't care if it's you guys or it's my husband later, but somebody's going to hear about it.
This was not all for nothing. Let Diane talk. Tell us what you found. Give us your
and it's really interesting, but I want everybody to know off the top, I am not a scientist in any way, shape, or form. So I think part of the reason why I kept reading more stuff and researching more stuff was to try to make myself understand it better. Because there's so much to this. And microbiome is kind of a big thing now. Like everybody kind of is like, like there's movies about it and like there's all this stuff about it. And we do learn a little bit more about how infants are affected by it. which is something that wasn't happening when my kids were babies. Like nobody talked about like, oh, are you taking care of your baby's gut? Like nobody talked about that. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a big thing now.
It is. It's totally a big thing. And there's a couple of things that really affect your baby's gut right out of the gate. So that is kind of like something. And of course, that leads to, that can lead to poop and all that other stuff too. But so the first year, a couple of things. First year of life is pivotal to the development of your gut microbiota. And breast milk is the main influence factor of the composition of the gut. Or the microbiota. So let's do a couple definitions here because I had to look this stuff up. I was like, what the heck does all this stuff mean? So microbiome is the collection of genomes from all the microorganisms in the environment. Microbiota is the microorganisms found in a specific environment. And the genome are the organism's complete set of DNA. And a microorganism is an organism that is microscopic. Like that's the bacteria, the fungi, and, all that stuff. So really, like this is like the bacteria that's in your baby's gut. And we know there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. So what's the deal? Like, how does this impact our baby? But breast milk really promotes the growth of the good bacteria. It helps to kill, it helps to either kill and or keep the bad bacteria from multiplying. So that is a really important piece of your baby's life, like getting their gut started off, because that carries on into life. Like that is really can lead to a lot of other health issues later on if you don't get that started off on a good note. Now, there are a couple things that can impact getting things started. And one of them is how your baby is born. That makes a huge difference in what the makeup of your baby's gut microbiome is. C-section deliveries, your baby is not as set up with a microbiome as they are for vaginal deliveries. And I'm not saying like, oh my God, nobody should ever get a C-section. I mean, I had one too, but
you can't avoid it.
Right. Sometimes you can't avoid it. But that is one of the things that they are said, because when babies are born vaginally, they are getting that bacteria from their mom, from the vaginal canal. And that is helping to set up. They need that. They need that bacteria.
Isn't that the reason why like in a kind of textbook birth, the baby is born facing the anus?
Yeah.
So that their face scrapes along that area as they come out and they get all that bacteria.
Yeah. It's like really important.
Isn't that right? Did I hear that, or am I making that up? I could totally be making that up.
And they call it like when people, there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. For parents who are having a scheduled C-section and want the flora given to the baby.
Oh.
And doctors are like, what are you talking about? We're not doing that. Like, it's totally, I can't remember the name of it, but that is like, that's a whole thing.
Well, I remember when I was pregnant with Exley, or with Jack too, but with Exley I had a home birth, and with the midwives, how they test you for GBS.
Yeah.
And so I was GBS positive, and in the hospital, they just start giving you antibiotics. But at a home birth, they were like, we don't have that. So we're going to have you do like a vaginal cleanse with soap.
Oh,
like with a douche.
Oh, okay.
And so I had to, you have to do that, which clears up all of the like bacteria and stuff other. And so I remember saying like, don't they want that? Don't they need that bacteria? And she's like, well, yeah, but we're trying to avoid a GBS positive baby.
Yeah.
So we need to kill all that. So, yeah.
And anyway. That is, and that's another thing that was noted as being an issue, was all the antibiotics that mothers or babies get either during labor or right after delivery. That is another problem. So and I think this is kind of interesting, in utero, the utero or the the stage in utero is the least understood period of microbial development. The thought that the womb is sterile and accordingly that the neonate's microbiome is first seeded at birth is the accepted dogma. However, studies consistently emerge that suggest microbial communities exist in the placenta, amniotic fluid, and meconium. Accordingly, intrauterine seeding is an intriguing possibility. For example, it is believed that the placenta harbors a wide range of microbes, many of which originate in the mouth. Thus, if children are exposed to placenta flora in utero, one can readily understand why maternal, prenatal, oral health is so important. So I think that is so interesting. Mm-hmm. The next stage of floral development is labor and delivery. So that is, like what we were just talking about, babies delivered via C-section experience altered, less beneficial microbial inoculation. The change in delivery mode may ultimately explain why C-section is associated with a number of long-term health challenges. And they do say, I've seen that before. I really don't know too much about that. Like I said, I'm a C-section parent. C-sections are pretty high. I'm not going to say, oh my God, your kid's doomed for the rest of their life if you have a C-section. We know C-sections save lives. So we are not going to dwell on that at all. Skin to skin contact after your baby is born transfers valuable skin microbes to the baby. A number of these organisms possess antimicrobial properties that defend against pathogens. So that skin to skin time is super important. And that's why we say we want your baby to be inoculated with your bacteria when they're first born, not the nurse. You know what I mean? That's taking your baby right. And so that's why we want that baby to be skin to skin right away, to go right on parents as soon as they're born so that they can get that bacteria inoculation. There's also really amazing properties to breast milk that will impact that bacteria as well. That they can't duplicate in formula, that they just can't.
Right. No.
And it's really fascinating how much your body will do what it needs to do in order to protect your baby and to get their microbiome set up the way it needs to be set up. There is a lot of discussion in these. I'm going to link all these articles and stuff that I found because they're really pretty cool. There is a lot of talk about how formula feeding can disrupt that process. And I don't think that's ever talked about the way it needs to be, and people just say, oh, well, formula feeding and breastfeeding, it's the same and blah, blah, blah. And it's no, it really isn't the same.
No,
there's a lot of differences there.
That's the problem, is the false advertising and the misinformation. It's not the fact that people use formula, because sometimes people want to or need to.
Or have to.
They need to have information. And when we're given information that's not true, it's just not helpful for anybody.
Right.
And we should talk more about this after a break.
Yes.
Okay. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Zomi. Breast pumps approved by lactation consultants and loved by moms. Zomi's unique alternating mode design works with you to make expressing breast milk as comfortable and easy as possible. Their pumps have hospital-grade strength, are portable, BPA-free, and best of all, covered by all insurances. The new Zomi Z2 features 3 different pumping styles, which you can further tailor for comfort: massage, expression, and 2-phase mode, expression and massage. The Zomi Z2 is a closed system pump that prevents milk from backing up in the tubing. It also comes with a lithium battery and a micro USB port with cable for connecting to a power source. Ideal for working and traveling. Zomi understands how crucial breastfeeding and pumping are to motherhood, so they made it easier with their double electric breast pumps. Check out Zomi at zomi.com. That's ZOMEE.com. And use code BADASS20 for 20% off. And today's episode is also brought to you by Simple Wishes. Simple Wishes offers hands-free pumping and nursing bras featuring a patented dual-function nursing clasp to easily switch between nursing and pumping, and buttery soft light as air fabrics for 24/7 comfort. Simply undo the lower clasp and slip your pump flange into the hidden pump support liner for a hands-free pumping experience. Undo the upper clasp for easy access for breastfeeding. Simple Wishes bras are smooth with no lumps that show under your shirt, The bras are designed to fit every shape of breast so that you don't need to feel uncomfortable while you're trying to pump or enjoy a nursing session with your baby. No one wants to waste their money on cheap products that don't last. Simple Wishes has you covered for your entire journey. You could check out every style of bra. There are a lot at simplewishes.com. Simplewishes.com. Use code BADASS30 for 30% off of your purchase. And today's sponsors and the promo codes can be found in our show notes under this episode at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. Our show notes will also include further information about things we talk about in this episode. And at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you'll also find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
And I will talk with you about poop.
You can tell her all your poop stories.
I could tell you all the poop stories. Yes. All right. There's a couple cool little things I do want to say about the microbiome really quickly before we talk a little bit more about poop. But there's a couple of components to your breast milk which are super important when it comes to this. So some of the sugars that are found in breast milk promote the development of a substance called Lactobacillus bifidus.
Oh my God.
I don't know why they named this stuff so crazy, but which makes the gut more acidic, thus helping to stop harmful bacteria from growing. Another substance found in breast milk is lactoferrin, which binds with iron, starving the harmful bacteria of the iron that they need to multiply, which I think is pretty cool. The other thing that is in our breast milk that really kind of takes off is oligosaccharides. And we know that that is something in our breast milk, and that is a sugar. And they're called human milk oligosaccharides. They're unique to primate milk, function as prebiotics to provide a selective growth advantage over pathogens, anti-adhesive antimicrobial agents, which selectively bind pathogens, and antimicrobial and antibiofilm compounds, which also help against pathogens. So your milk is really just geared to help all of the good bacteria in your baby's gut flourish and grow, which keeps them healthier. So some of the things that can happen, and we see this a lot with so for example, a mom is on antibiotics and she is breastfeeding her baby. I had this happen not too long ago where I had a parent that was on antibiotics and her baby ended up having really almost like diarrhea type poops. Mm. She was like, I don't know, the doctor told me that maybe I should give up dairy. Do you think that's what's going on? And I said, no, I really think it's the antibiotic. So the antibiotic was given to the mother, and it was impacting her microbiome and her bacterias, which is then impacting the babies, which was causing the baby to have loose stools, loose poop, and diarrhea because the baby was being impacted by that bad bacteria. So that microbiome, how that's set up in your baby's system and those pathogens and those bad bacteria, that can cause a lot of problems with poop and things like that. And that's why formula fed babies sometimes really struggle with digesting formula and with things like colic and diarrhea. We see those things happening a lot with formula fed babies, and they have to switch formulas and try different things to see. And they always go, oh, it's the lactose. And it's I don't think it's just the lactose in the formulas. I think a lot of it is too that the formula just does not encourage growth of good bacteria in your baby to help with their digestive system and their intestines and all of that stuff. So pooping for your baby, we know that the breast milk poop, that's kind of what we call it, the breast milk poop, is that yellow, soft, mushy, seedy kind of poop that nobody expects it to see. I was doing a breastfeeding class the other day, and I was like, it will be like Winnie the Pooh yellow. that's the color of.
And it smells like buttery popcorn.
It kind of does. Yeah, it kind of does. But it doesn't. And there's variations to that. Yeah. So don't ever feel like, okay, my baby's poop has to look exactly like this picture or exactly as we're talking about it, because there can be variations. Sometimes it's more orange. Sometimes it's a little greenish tinged. Sometimes it's a little bit, less yellow. It just, all of that is okay. Sometimes babies poop every day. Sometimes they don't. A lot of times breastfed babies poop way less frequently. Like they'll poop a lot in the beginning. And then after about 6-8 weeks, then they poop a lot less. And that is really pretty normal for a breastfed baby. Sometimes they go like days and days, and that's okay. And that freaks parents out.
It does, because then it's like, my baby's constipated. I need to give them something and all of this.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
There's just very little waste with breast milk.
Yeah, there's not much waste for them to get rid of. So that's one of the things, I think we talked about that when we talked about overfeeding, is sometimes I'll see, sometimes we see spitting up with overfeeding, but often I will see a ton of pooping with overfeeding. And I will ask parents, like, is a baby poop a lot? And they'll be like, oh my God, constantly. They have a diaper rat, it's just their skin's breaking down. They're pooping all the time. And it's like, that's how their body's getting rid of the waste or getting rid of that excess. Maybe they're not spitting it up, but they're pooping a ton. But what and poop is very individualized. And I try to tell people that too. Like, it's very individualized. Like, we don't expect every single baby to poop exactly the same. But for some reason, that's what we expect. You know what do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, they're like, oh, my baby isn't pooping 5 times a day. And that's what this book says they're supposed to be doing. So then they freak out that their baby's not pooping that many times a day. It's like, but maybe that's just your baby. Like, that's how they are. They don't always poop like that.
Yeah, they're all different.
They're all very different. Now, a couple of things that you can do. One of the things that I do recommend, especially if the mom has to, if the mom's on antibiotics for something. I
was going to say, don't refuse antibiotics.
Right.
Like, if you need antibiotics, then take them.
Right. And they happen, even after you have, they do them a lot, obviously, if you're giving birth in a hospital and you're, strep B positive, whatever, which by the way, is pretty, that's 20 to 30%. Yeah. That's pretty common.
Yeah, totally.
I had a mom one time who was told she was strep B positive and she thought it was an STD. She punched her boyfriend in the face.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh no.
I know. But it's really, and you could be strep positive one baby and not the next baby. Like, it's just a bacteria that's growing. It's like, it's not anything like, oh my God, it's this horrible, thing that you've been diagnosed with. It's just, it's really common. And they'll give you antibiotics for that. But after you have your baby, you could be a couple months into breastfeeding and maybe you have to have some dental work done, or maybe you have, maybe there's something else going on there and they end up giving you an antibiotic, and that is totally okay. Like, don't not take it, but it might impact your baby's gut flora. And it might be, it might make them a little bit uncomfortable. It might be upsetting to their stomach, just like it is when you take an antibiotic for too long. So,
and then they'll recover.
Right. They will absolutely recover. And that's what, that one mom that said, well, my doctor told me maybe I should give up dairy. And I was like, no, I really think it's the antibiotic. And I think we should give it a little time, because it does take, and some of the things that I was reading here is that it does take a little time. Like, if you go back to only breastfeeding, like, say you needed a supplement, in the hospital, you need a supplement, and that introduction of formula caused a disruption of your baby's gut flora. It will recover when you go back to just breastfeeding. So it just takes a little bit of time for your baby's gut to recover from that, but it will recover. So you just need to give it that time. But you can also give your baby a probiotic, because that will also help them for their gut flora too. And you can take one. Like, I know there are people take them all the time and they really work. I have not. I don't know if you take one or if your kids take one.
I do.
Do you find that it's helpful? I should take one. I should give one to my son because I think he really needs one. But I
can't say that I notice much of a difference. I just hear that it's good for you, so I take.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I think the reason why I don't is that I'm confused by what's good and what's not good. Right. And I think there's some out there that are really good ones that you should be taking. And then I think there are some out there that are just junk. And I'm afraid of falling into the junk category.
Yeah.
So I don't know enough about.
Yeah, I think the food derived ones are the best ones.
Oh, probably.
I can send you the one that I take.
Okay.
My kids take it too, but I think those are for like little kids.
Oh,
so
maybe.
your big kids would probably just need like an adult.
I don't know. They need something, man. But some kind of something. But it is, I mean, if you are a parent who is breastfeeding, and I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, or you're planning to, if you're pregnant, I mean, just kind of know, like, I think it's really interesting that during pregnancy, they're finding too that that your baby is being impacted by that bacteria already. And I think that is really interesting. And then just kind of feel really good about the fact that your milk is really helping to set your baby's gut up for success and really like fighting off those bad pathogens and keeping up with the good ones. And that's a really important thing. I mean, that they were showing that a lot of this can lead to allergy. One of the articles that I was reading was about allergy prevention and how the gut microbiota by breastfeeding could be the gateway to preventing allergy, because it can cause, that bad bacteria that can get into your baby's system can cause allergy. And they do notice more like food allergies, eczemas, things like that with those babies, which is why we see that more with formula feeding too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting once you try to put it all together. But I will link these articles if anybody wants to be a nerd and read through all, all this stuff. But it's really kind of cool. And it talks about like the open gut, which babies are born with like what they call like an open gut, like the cells are separated. And it's like that for the first like 4 to 6 months. And it's very easy for good bacteria to pass through, but it's also very easy for bad bacteria to pass through. So that's why one of the reasons why like the breast milk, the components to the breast milk kind of grab up all that bad bacteria and keep it from getting into your baby's system because of that open gut. So there's a lot of cool information about it. If you want to read more about it, I will definitely link it all in there. And there's like I found this cool little picture that shows like the bad bacteria, the names of the bad bacteria, the names of the good bacteria, and I thought that was kind of,
that's awesome.
I know. So,
well, thanks for doing all that research, Diane.
It is my pleasure.
We all appreciate it.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. So don't worry about your baby's poop. Get a probiotic if it's something that you're interested in. If you are concerned that their poop is not where it needs to be, but breastfeeding will keep it pretty normal. And babies, like when you're breastfeeding, that you can't even find information on constipated babies when breastfeeding.
Oh yeah. Right.
And people always say, oh, I think my baby's constipated.
I know. That's such a big thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's another thing we don't know.
Right.
Like an adult poops every day or sometimes more. And so how can my baby possibly go, so many days? Because your baby's just having breast milk, not Big Macs.
Thank God. Yeah. I mean, it just is. It's just okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Or at least try not to. I don't want to tell you what to worry about and what not to worry about, but try not to, because it's okay. And get rid of the app if you have one, if you're tracking the poop.
Yeah. It's another app you can delete.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.